Hello everyone, in today's video I will be doing an updated 2026 Senate election video. A lot has happened since my last video, especially in Maine, as Graham Plattner, progressive Senate candidate and was the Democrat nominee, had to drop out of the race and due to allegations against him. And now the likely nominee or presumptive nominee for the new Democratic nominee is Troy Jackson. So Graham Plattner and Troy Jackson have basically the same views, and we could probably see this actually end up hurting Susan Collins. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the video. I'm first going to get started by doing all of our safe red states. So that's going to be Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. I don't think the Democrats will spend anything in these states, really. Montana had the chance to be likely Republican if the Democratic nominee dropped out, because Montana did have a popular independent, and really the Democrat candidate in the Montana Senate race was a bit of a spoiler. But now it looks like the Democratic nominee in Montana will not be dropping out the race and will not be endorsing the independent candidate in Montana. Besides that, most of these other races are pretty easy. Most of these states have incumbent Republicans who know how to win in these states, and Democrats don't really have too much interest in supporting their Democratic nominees in these very extremely red states. Now I'm going to be doing my safe blue states, which will be Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico, Illinois, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, and Virginia. And after doing my safe red and blue states, we have 43 to 43. And some states you may notice are not safe red are Kansas and South Carolina. Kansas definitely has struggled economically recently, so a lot of farmers in Kansas. I do think that could hurt Republicans a little bit, just the tiniest amount. I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas is safe, but based off current polling, the Republicans will probably take Kansas at around between 12 to 9 points. So it could be safe, but most likely it's going to be a little shaky for Republicans. And I also want to talk about Nebraska going likely red. A lot of people are really excited about Dan Osborne, especially with how well he performed in 2024, where he came within 6 points, I believe, of taking the seat. But recent polling has recently came out, or not recent polling, but polling has shown that the incumbent Republican in Nebraska, Pete Ricketts, he is a 2-term senator there, so he is the incumbent. I've seen polls that have him as high as up 16 points, and I've only seen one poll where Dan Osborne is actually polling ahead, but that is an outlier. Almost every poll has Ricketts up by at least 7 points. I'm going to find it really hard to not see Ricketts at least win this by 9 points. Something truly terrible is going to have to happen to Ricketts in order for Dan Osborne to make this competitive. Early on in the race, some polling had him kind of close, but it's basically over for Dan Osborne. Democrats probably won't help him, if at all, this cycle or the rest of this cycle. And back on Kansas, I think the biggest problem for Democrats in Kansas is that the Republicans already have their nominee, Roger Marshall, and he is a 1-term incumbent, while the Democratic primaries are still going on. And it's a pretty somewhat competitive primary, and no matter who wins, none of them have enough statewide recognition in order to really make it competitive. But Roger Marshall isn't the most popular senator in the world. Now, we'll do some likely Democrat states, which I do expect Minnesota to maybe be likely. I could definitely see it being safe too. It, I believe Minnesota's going to be somewhere from 9 to 10 points, and on my map, template 10 points or more to one side is safe, and between 5 and 9 points is likely for me. I could see Minnesota, especially with the ICE shootings a couple months ago. I could see Minnesota being safe blue, especially with Trump's most recent endorsement in the governor's race of the My Pillow guy. I definitely do think that hurt Republican credibility in the state. Most likely, I expect Minnesota to be safe. Another state I want to talk about is South Carolina, where incumbent Senator Lindsey Graham has recently passed away. And so the Republicans are currently working on finding a new Republican nominee. So it's weird to say, but that will help Democrats in a way, as you have the Democratic candidate, Annie Andrew, who is a solid candidate for such a red state and can probably run up whoever is the Republican nominee, give them a bang for their buck. Um, but still, it's South Carolina. I expect South Carolina maybe go 9 or 8 points towards Republicans. And now we get on to some of the more interesting states too. Uh, I expect Florida to probably be likely Republican. We could see the Latino vote or slash Hispanic vote decrease a little bit in Florida, which could lead to a Democrat doing pretty well for such a red state. But I'd still expect Florida to go 8 to 7 points Republican, maybe 6 points on a good day. I now want to talk about Iowa, which has been an interesting race where incumbent Senator Ernest is not seeking re-election. She was a two-term senator from Iowa, so that definitely does hurt Republicans in the state. So instead, they have Ashley Hinson, who is the Republican nominee, who's going against the Democrat nominee, Josh Turks, I believe is his name. Yeah, that's his name. He is a very strong candidate. Recent Iowa polling has him within 3 to 4 points. There's some favorable polling that has him within a point or tied, but he's around that 3 to 4 point margin. I expect Iowa to be one of the closer red states in the country. And I also want to talk about New Hampshire, where the three-term Democrat senator is not seeking re-election, which definitely does hurt the Democratic Party in New Hampshire. But the Republican primary is still going on. But the Republicans do have Scott Brown, who was a former senator from Massachusetts, which is interesting. He won in 2010, left in 2013, special election type thing. But I still do expect Democrats to win New Hampshire by around 6, maybe 5 points at worst. But Kamala Harris still won it. Kamala Harris still won it in 2024 by, I believe, a 3 point margin. And in 2022, New Hampshire went, no, not 2022, 2020 New Hampshire went 6 points in the Senate race to Democrats, and Joe Biden won it by around 7, 8 points. No, he won it by 10 points, I believe. So New Hampshire, yeah, New Hampshire's going to go to Democrats by probably around 6 to 5 points. I could see New Hampshire being closer than expected, though, but with just how unpopular Trump is with only a 36% approval rating, with negative 23 points below water, more unpopular than Biden and first-term Trump during this time. So I do expect New Hampshire to probably be around 6 points Democrats. Now, Alaska is a very interesting Senate race. We do have Mary Pelosi, who has won a U.S. House seat at Alaska, and since Alaska's population is pretty small for a state, that's the only House seat in Alaska. So she was able to win that seat in 2020, but then I believe lost her election in 2022. So it is so she can win in the state. She has shown that she has the power to win on a statewide election, but she is going up against a strong Republican presumptive nominee, Dan Sullivan. He has won tough races against Democrats before in the state, and a lot of people seem really high on Mary. But polling has a slight tilt to the Republican Party in Alaska. I could definitely see Mary being able to pull out a win, but right now I have Alaska going 2 points Republican right now, maybe probably around 1 point to the Republican Party. But we'll see as we get closer to Election Day. I now want to go ahead and get Georgia and North Carolina out the way. In Georgia, John Ossoff he is out fundraising Mike Collins by a mile, and Democrats are as a whole. And I easily expect John Ossoff to win this race by around 3 points. I used to say he was going to win it by around 6 or 8 points, but Mike Collins has shown to be a pretty strong Republican nominee. And Roy Cooper, former governor from North Carolina, and he's going up against a non-incumbent Republican senator. I expect Roy Cooper to win North Carolina with ease, possibly in the 6 point margin, but North Carolina still on a federal election level is a Republican swing state, I would say. So I expect Roy Cooper to win this race by around 3 to 4 points. And Michigan's the next state I want to talk about, where you have Republican candidate Mike Rogers, who has honestly been a strong Republican candidate, but presumptive Democrat nominee, which who knows, the Democratic primary in Michigan has been very competitive against Haley Stevens and Dr. Abdul El Saeed. I hope I said his name right. But I do believe if Dr. Abdul does end up winning the Democratic primary, I do think he is Democrats' best chance to winning Michigan as a whole, and I do expect him to be able to pull through. And right now I have Michigan going around 2 points to the Democrats. Mike Rogers has sort of fallen off in recent polling. I do think Michigan is probably closer to a toss-up, though. So maybe one. I think Abdul will end up winning between 1 and 3 points in Michigan. We'll now talk about Maine, where Troy Jackson is the presumptive Democrat nominee, and a CNN poll actually had any Democrat use a generic Democrat up 12 points against Susan Collins. Now, I don't think it's going to be that bad against Susan Collins. Susan Collins is relatively a strong Republican candidate in a blue state, kind of a blue state. I do expect Democrats to be able to take Maine, but probably around 3 to 4 points. We'll see. There's not a lot of polling on Troy Jackson, so we'll see. This is really just a guess, but based on what we had for Graham Plattner and what we have for generic Democrats, I expect Democrats to be able to take Maine. Now, Texas is a very interesting election to watch, as we have Kim Paxton versus James Tallarico, and if we go to cash advantages, we see James Tallarico is outraising Kim Paxton by 20 miles. My goodness. Kim Paxton has only raised $2.2 million, and he only has $1.8 million on hand, while James Tallarico has raised over $28.3 million with $21 million on hand. James Tallarico is doing amazing, and recent polling has showed that 45% of Texans have not heard that much about Kim Paxton's legal troubles. So I definitely do think, as the word gets out on Kim Paxton's sort of, I guess you could say, shady past does spread around in Texas, we could see James Tallarico polling increase. Right now, some polls have them dead even. Most polls have it between Tallarico up 1 point to Kim Paxton up 2 points. So we'll see how that goes. But Texas has just been a red state for so long. I do hope James Tallarico wins, and I do think Texas is honestly a toss-up. It's like a 50-50. I would not be surprised at all if James Tallarico pulls this off and Texas does go blue. But right now, there's just not enough polling supporting James Tallarico being up. Most of it's a toss up. And if it's a toss up, I do think it's going to Republicans right now. We'll see. We'll see. Because we don't know how much the Republican National Convention, the RNC, is going to help Ken Paxton. I wouldn't be surprised if the Republican Party ends up dumping $500 million into this race. It will be a probably, if not one of, if not the most expensive Senate race in U.S. history. And now Ohio, where we have John Husted versus Sherrod Brown. Sherrod Brown, former senator from Ohio. I think he served 3 terms as senator from Ohio, so he has great name recognition. He only lost in 2024. He announced very early that he was going to run for Ohio. He's a populist, which I do think will help him this cycle. And John Husted has supported AI data centers, which Sherrod Brown is using against him, which I do think is really helping him in Ohio. Is really helping Sherrod Brown. Sherrod Brown is linking John Husted to the AI data centers every chance he gets. I, I also think Ohio is a toss up, but since Ohio has been extremely red on a federal level, voting, I think it voted for Trump from 2016 to 2024 by 8 points or more, all 3 of those elections. So I would be kind of surprised if Sherrod Brown ends up winning, but also not. I believe Ohio is a toss up. I do believe, however, depending on how DNC spends its money, either Ohio or Texas or Alaska will turn blue. I don't think all of these states are going to be lean red, but I do expect 2 of them to be. I mean, I could see, I just don't know if the DNC has enough money to support all 3 of these tight races. They're probably going to have to pick one and really stick to it, especially with how expensive Texas will probably end up being. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and peace out.